Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Fear Part 2, and I know the last time I ended up talking about my kids and my belief in them and the light that they bring to the world. I wanted to continue that conversation this week. I'm going to do a couple of things though. One of the things that happens when I'm having these conversations is that a lot of what goes on is really my answers as opposed to the questions. And so I'm going to share with you a variety of questions that can be connected to these conversations. That's really the more important information to understand what's behind the 7 billion geniuses process. So my belief in my children, the light that they bring to the world, I could ask myself from there, what does it say about me? What does it say about what matters to me? That would be how I would answer that question. So asking a question into the territory of that response is what that is. That's what all the responses, the questions is asking questions into territories of responses. Territories, thinking about things geographically as opposed to on timelines. So I could ask, what does it say about what matters to me that I answered that question that way? I could say there's a experience of experience type of question, which means asking questions into territories of other people's experience. What would people who care about me say it says about me or what matters to me? That's two different types of questions that I would answer the questions this way. By asking those kinds of questions, we create further, richer descriptions about the things that matter to us. And rich descriptions is another context, another concept that I really want people to understand. Rich descriptions as opposed to surface descriptions. When I ask a question of myself, what does it say about what matters to me, what I hold dear, what I stand for, that I would answer that question that way, it opens up a door to a variety of different responses that might come from me that create a very kind of rich sense of what I hold dear and what I stand for in relation to this topic. I could do that in relation to really any topic, to talk about what matters to me and what I hold dear. And as you can see, those kinds of questions, once you ask those types of questions, the experience of fear as being an emotion that can be paralyzing and sometimes destructive, at the very least keeps us from doing things we might otherwise do, has a real much tougher time kind of keeping a hold on me because I see it in a much larger context of where it comes from. There's something that I can't stress enough about this process, and it has to do with curiosity. It takes a profound amount of curiosity and a willingness to not accept the basic notion that I understand what I mean by the words that I use, to ask myself these questions. But it's profoundly important. It's profoundly important for me to change the way that I think about the words that I use, to ask myself these questions by refusing to take up the notion that I know what I mean by the words that I use, which seems like a completely counterintuitive idea. However, it's extraordinarily important. It moves us from a position of saying everything is known and we just have to go out and identify it to everything changes all the time, and because it's constantly changing and we're constantly changing, there's an ever-evolving thing that we can explore. There's an ever-evolving us that we can be curious about and ask questions into. It's not to say that there are fixed people and that we ask questions to find out about those fixed people. It's to take up the position that we are all always changing and evolving and becoming other things, and that asking questions is simply a way to respect that and to say, well, who am I today? How can I find out about that today? And saying that I already know everything that I know and I already know everything that I mean by the words that I use completely blocks off that possibility. We're left with the notion of stagnation, which I don't believe in at all. The notion of always being the same thing over and over and over again until we die, and that we just continue to replicate what we did yesterday again today. It's not my experience of anyone or anything that's true, and so I completely reject that idea and go back to this process of curiosity and question asking. It's a fundamentally different way to approach life than what we're kind of used to, but I find it extraordinarily exhilarating and enlivening. And as you've seen in these past two videos, it transforms, if you take up something like fear, it transforms what that means to the person that I'm talking to, in this instance, me. And in the first two videos, the idea of anger completely changes what it means in the context of that conversation. So I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'll sign off for this week. But this is not, I'm not attempting to now replicate another construct of knowingness. Once I've had this conversation, that doesn't mean that conversation's done. I could have this conversation about fear again tomorrow, and it would be a completely different outcome, because we are all constantly changing. And so that idea of curiosity stands with that as well. Perpetual curiosity means that we're recognizing that everything's always changing, we're always changing. What we mean by the things that we say, what we stand for, all that is in a constant change, process of evolution. And in order to attend to that, curiosity is the fundamental way to attend to that. The idea of sort of the open mind, or the young mind, or the not knowing mind, it's not about being naive. It's about refusing to take up the notion that we can be completely and fully known. And it's about moving away from kind of that dead sense that once somebody is born, they are what they are and ever shall be, to when we are born, we're continuing to blossom and unfold and evolve. And we can pay attention to that simply by staying curious and fundamentally, unshakably, profoundly curious. Not just, oh, you ask one question and then I think I know what I mean and I go on to the next thing. The notion of continual genuine curiosity and asking sincere, purposeful questions into the territories of people's experience. Have a great week. Stay in touch. Please subscribe if you can. That would be great. But there's contact information at the end of the video to get in touch with me. I love to talk to people. I'd love to hear what you think about these videos. But do stay in touch, and I'll talk to you next week.